1:47 a.m., 7 succinct words arrived. If you find this unsatisfying, consider a separation. For months, I sat on the couch, my coffee cold, anticipating her return. An explanation never materialized, nor did an acknowledgement of our strained situation. Acknowledging my own pretense, I waited for the illusion to shatter. Then those 7 words appeared on my screen, silencing something deep within me. Meg had been putting in long hours at Lux PR, a job she termed as such. Late-night coordinating events, handling promotions, and rubbing shoulders with clients. I chose to trust her. I desired to believe her. She'd return smelling of cigarette smoke and thumping bass, and I'd tell myself it was just the nature of the job. But the increasingly difficult-to-explain messages were becoming hard to dismiss. Darren was a familiar name on her phone more than once. We weren't particularly close. He had been in our apartment, occupied our chair, consumed our beer. He was a promoter like Meg, part of the same circle of clubs, events, and individuals who reveled until dawn as if it signified significance. I rationalized it as professional. I justified myself as not being the type to rummage through my spouse's phone. I convinced myself of numerous things. Then came her text message, and I ceased my self-justification. I placed the coffee gently on the table, deliberately, fearing haste might shatter something. Meg and I had been together for 6 years, married for 3. We crossed paths when I was photographing a corporate event downtown. She was the one orchestrating the whole affair. Darting about with a headset and clipboard, she made it all appear effortless. I requested her number at the end of that night. She handed it to me even before I completed my sentence. We constructed what seemed real, or so I believed. A 2-bedroom apartment filled with too many plants and insufficient closet space. Our joint calendar on the fridge, labeling her events with one color and my shoots with another. Sunday mornings filled with mediocre coffee and enlightening discussions. That's who we were, or so I thought. With fewer weddings, corporate gigs, and music videos that year, nothing was booking like before. I found myself preoccupied with money matters and career concerns, inadvertently becoming less involved. More reserved at meals, distracted on weekends, a situation I wasn't proud of but believed we had the luxury of time to rectify. I kept telling myself that, just more time. I reread her text once more. 7 words, no question mark, no ambiguity. She wasn't asking for an explanation, she was challenging me. It was a Tuesday in March when I first sensed something amiss. Meg arrived home at 3 a.m. and found me still awake. I asked about the night, and she mentioned a last-minute booking that required her to stay late to oversee it. Her voice was unwavering, devoid of uncertainty. I acknowledged and retired to bed. That was my initial error. I let it slide without posing a single query afterwards. From then on, late nights turned into a recurring pattern. 2 or 3 times a week, she wouldn't return home before midnight, occasionally closer to 2 o'clock. I began noticing minor details that I wished to ignore, such as her immediately placing her phone face on the counter upon arrival or taking a shower again before retiring to bed, even when she had already done so earlier. Trivial matters, things that could be rationalized individually. I attempted discussing this with her about 6 weeks in, expressing my longing for our evening companionship and mentioning the schedule's challenges. She responded by saying the job had a certain flow and I should trust her. Then she kissed me on the cheek and went to attend to her phone. I chose to accept that as sufficient. My second blunder was convincing myself that posing additional questions would portray me as insecure. I reassured myself that I wasn't that type of person. The type who scrutinizes his wife's phone in the dead of night. I truly thought otherwise. However, Darren Holt was frequently mentioned, a man I had known for about 5 years, mostly through intersecting industries. We would bump into each other at events, exchange numbers, yet never actually called. He was boisterous, much like promoters often are, always working a crowd, always with a drink in hand and a tale that put him at the heart of it. I had never held ill feelings towards him. In fact, he barely crossed my mind. That all changed when I found myself preoccupied with thoughts about him day and night. It was a Saturday in April, with Meg preparing for a club event. She spent 40 minutes choosing an outfit, which wasn't unusual, except she seemed more cautious that evening. She sprayed perfume twice and checked her reflection one too many times. I asked if I could accompany her. She looked at me in the mirror and said, "It's a work function, Ryan. You'd just be standing around." I replied that I understood. After she departed, I pondered over it. You were standing idly, more like a piece of furniture than her spouse. Impulsively, I unlocked my phone and navigated to Instagram. I wasn't searching for anything particular, but I stumbled upon it nonetheless. Ryan had posted a story, showcasing crowd scenes, drink specials, the standard promotional content. and briefly in one snapshot I spotted Meg standing close by, laughing at something that seemed tailored just for her ears. I replayed it thrice. Once it vanished, so did it from my view. That night's sleep eluded me. Exactly 2 weeks later, a last-minute cancellation of a shoot left me jobless. Corporate headshots, good pay, all gone with one morning email. With no other appointments scheduled, I tried to engage in editing, but my focus was elsewhere. By mid-afternoon, restlessness had set in enough for me to drive. Without a destination in mind, I assured myself I was merely leaving the apartment. Eventually, I found myself near Lux, not in front of it. 2 blocks distant, in a parking lot I occasionally utilized during neighborhood photo sessions, I remained stationary within my vehicle for several minutes, feeling foolish, on the verge of departure when Meg and Darren exited from a side exit. They strolled casually, unafraid to be observed, their body language suggesting deep-seated comfort. Darren's hand rested on the small of Meg's back while she leaned up for an extended kiss, one that responded to questions I had been too timid to ask over the past 4 months. Unmoving, I remained behind the car's windshield. It was Wednesday afternoon, 2 blocks from her office. I was unable to initiate driving. My memory of the journey home is blurred. Upon arrival, I settled on the same couch where I had waited for her each night. For a considerable amount of time, I didn't stir. That evening, she texted to inform her late arrival. I responded with an agreement. For 3 days after the parking lot incident, I remained silent, hoping for a moment of clarity that never arrived. A time when I'd know my next step. Instead, I merely carried on with routine tasks, brewing coffee, answering emails, eating dinner in silence across from her as if nothing had changed. She discussed work. I simply nodded and watched her face for any indication of her feelings towards the situation. None was apparent. Her composure was unsettling. It was this lack of emotion that hurt me more than anything, not the kiss, the calmness. On the 4th day at 1:47 a.m., she texted from the club, "If you don't like it, divorce me." I could hear the alcohol in her message, that type of bravado that fades with the morning. I read it thrice. Then I set aside my phone and ventured to the closet. From the shelf, I retrieved my old sports bag. I moved softly, as one does when trying not to wake someone. However, the apartment was vacant. I packed essentials, clothes, charger, and left silently. Packed toiletries, followed by retrieving my passport. Puzzled about needing the passport, but felt its presence was necessary. Placed the bag near the front door, placed keys on a table beside it. Recorded a 10-second video of the scene without anything else. Sent the clip to Meg without any comment. Retrieved the bag and walked out, putting it in the trunk and taking the driver's seat. Closed the car door. The street was unusually quiet, only heard at 2 a.m. in residential areas with sleeping dogs and dim lights above building entrances. I rested my hands on the steering wheel, hesitated to start the engine. Unsure about how long I sat there, perhaps 20 minutes or longer. Kept convincing myself to turn the key, just drive. Decision made, bag and trunk, keys off table, video sent, it's done. But my hand remained still. 6 years don't simply end due to packing a bag, yet the realization hadn't fully sunk in until that instant. I knew this intellectually, but emotionally I hadn't felt it until then. Alone in a dark vehicle parked outside our shared abode, my hastily collected belongings clattering from the rear, my phone buzzed. It was Meg. Not a text message, but a call. I gazed at her name on the screen, waiting for it to disappear. Then came a text. "Ryan, what's this?" Followed by another, "Call me." But then silence. I placed the phone face down on the passenger seat. After a brief pause, I realized that Lux was likely just minutes away from our apartment, a fact I hadn't considered before. Suddenly, I heard it, the sound of a car rapidly approaching from behind. The reflection of its headlights in my mirror, followed by a door opening and the crisp click-clack of high heels on pavement. Meg didn't head to the apartment. She made her way directly to the car. She tapped on the window with 2 fingers, not forcefully, but almost gently. I hesitated before lowering the window to see her, makeup still intact and hair styled. Evening attire from her club outing, she seemed hurried, her eyes darting. Checked me, then back seat. Said, "Ryan, come inside, please." I remained quiet, aware of how my words earlier might have appeared, just a moment of foolishness. She pressed the door frame for entry, calm and composed. Beneath this demeanor, however, was an undercurrent of urgency she tried to suppress. Exited the car, not certain why. Told myself it was to discuss face-to-face instead of through a car window's confines. Truth be told, I wasn't prepared. Spent 20 minutes in that vehicle and still felt unprepared. Left the bag in the trunk, ascended the stairs. She brewed tea. Strange, given our impending conversation. Seemed like an odd choice for such a discussion. At the kitchen table, she conversed with me. Darren was merely a coworker, Her words held frustration, not aggression. She cherished me aiming to mend our issues. I almost believed her, yet her phone buzzed on the tabletop. The screen illuminated, displaying a name, Darren. She swiftly grabbed the device, flipping it face down before I could discern anything beyond the name. However, that name was telling enough. The room fell silent. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she resumed speaking, her voice and composure unchanged, save for a fissure. She claimed it was likely just a work-related query. She promised to handle it the next day. She asserted that our current situation was what truly mattered, us attempting to mend something valuable. I observed her tightly grasping the mug on the table, a gesture reflecting an attempt to conceal unease. How long, I inquired. She blinked and then looked at the mug, seemingly lost in thought. Ryan, she replied tentatively. How long, Meg? The prolonged quiet revealed her response without uttering a word. I rose, prompting her to speak again, faster, less composed. Her composure crumbled eventually. She admitted it wasn't what I assumed. She confessed she had ended things. She was uncertain and terrified, yet still wanted us. Her voice quivered, hinting at sincerity, perhaps even truth. I approached the door. Ryan, please. She followed me to the hallway. Don't do this, not like this. I paused with my hand on the door frame, turned back, and looked at her once more in our kitchen, under our light, in our 3-year-old apartment. Then I departed, closing the door after me. Instead of using the elevator, I descended the stairs. Perhaps I required those extra 30 seconds. Maybe I just couldn't stay put in a confined space at that moment. Footsteps resonated in the stairwell as I unconsciously measured floors. 3, 2, 1, ground. Pushing through the lobby door, I walked to the car where my bag remained untouched in the trunk. A reminder of the hour that passed since she tapped on the window, brewed tea, sat across from me, and nearly convinced me that a ringing phone was mere coincidence. I paused for a moment at the rear of the vehicle, hand on the trunk, unopened. Already knowing its contents, I climbed into the driver's seat. The street remained as tranquil as before, boasting the same overhead light, parked cars, and still air, as if time stood still while I was upstairs or the last hour never occurred at all. I retrieved my phone from the passenger seat where it lay face down. A series of 7 missed calls from Meg and 3 texts awaited me, but I ignored them, opting to scroll past them instead until reaching Darren's number, a relic from years ago connected to some event or shoot. One night when we were mere acquaintances without any of this baggage, I fixated on his name for a spell. Then I initiated the call. After 3 rings, he answered. Soft club music resonated in the background, the same tune that had been swallowing my wife for months. He greeted me as if unsure of who was calling. Possibly he hadn't recognized the number or failed to save it. It's Ryan, I confirmed, Meg's husband. A brief silence followed, accompanied by the persistent club music. She's yours now, I stated. I subsequently ended the call. I held the phone in my hand for a fleeting instant. My heart pounded, but my hands remained steady, which took me aback. I had anticipated a sense of crumbling or a wall falling. Instead, there was a sharp, unadulterated clarity, the kind you experience when you cease waiting and simply accept things as they are. I ignited the car engine. No clear-cut plan was in place. With a sack containing 3 days' worth of attire, my passport, leftover camera gear from a recent shoot, and a fueled vehicle, I set off. For now, arrangements could be postponed. Hotels, calls, documents, they could all wait. The open road, the humming engine, and the city gradually receding as I drove were my only companions. I pondered the video I'd sent her, my bag by the door, keys on the table, a brief 10-second clip. I can't say why I chose to record it rather than departing straightforwardly. Perhaps I wanted her to witness it, or maybe it was for my own benefit. Silence reigned outside the windows. I drove without turning back.